Okay, now that I have the 1/4" face glued onto here, I'm going to go ahead and cut a small groove into the center of the larger groove that I cut in the main body. That'll allow the neck of this T-bolt to be able to slide through and everything and create that T-track effect. So now with everything set up on the fence, all I have to do is just cut it out. Okay, with that groove cut in there now, that'll allow my T-bolt to slide in and lock in when I lock down my stop block or feather boards or any of those little jigs that'll fit into a T-track area. Okay guys, before I attach the fence, there's one last thing I like to do. I want to cut a small little 45-degree chamfer on the bottom inside of the fence, and that gives, it's like a little channel for the sawdust to go into. So it doesn't build up in front of your fence and mess up your alignment on your cuts or anything. So I've got my blade on my saw tilted to 45 degrees. Just need to go ahead and cut that out, and then we can get it attached to the sled itself. Okay, for this next step, we're going to take the base and get it into the miter tracks and get it positioned over the blade. And now we're going to turn on the motor and slowly raise the blade up until it cuts through this base. That way we can use the blade to align our fence when we get ready to attach it. Now when you're doing this step, be mindful of where your hands are. You don't want your hands anywhere near where this blade is going to protrude through the base. Okay, I've got the sled turned around on the table so the front is facing me. And I'm going to put this front fence on. Now the front fence, its main purpose is to keep both halves of the sled intact together as one, because you're going to be cutting a curve cut down the center of this sled. So this will tie both halves together and keep everything stable. Now my height on mine is 4 3/4 inches tall. I like a tall fence and a tall front fence. Because sometimes I make high cuts, and this front base is taller than the maximum height of my table saw. So I know that I'll never cut through this, and it'll always be one solid piece. Others may do it differently. This is just the way I do it. Alright, so I've got it pretty much centered on here. It doesn't have to be crucial. Like I said, it doesn't have to be squared on here. It's not as important as that front fence or that main fence is, but you want it somewhat square. Just line it up with the front of your sled and you should be fine. Go ahead and countersink and drill and countersink your screws. Okay guys, I cannot stress this enough. When you are installing these screws for these fences, do not install a screw anywhere near the vicinity of where this blade is going to cut. Now I have a clamp here as it's dual purpose for me. One, to hold the piece in place while I screw it down, and the second, I've got it clamped right where the saw kerf is as a reminder, don't put a screw there. It's not good for the blade, it's not good for the screw, and it's not good for you, okay? So just be mindful of that. So now I've got my holes pre-drilled. I'm going to go ahead and countersink them and then install the screws. Now I am gluing this fence down. There is glue on here. The front fence I'm not going to glue down in case I ever have to make adjustments in the future, the main fence. But this fence, it's going to stay here permanently, and it's just some added protection or added security. So I want to go ahead and I added some glue to it. Make sure that your heads are up into the sled a little bit so you're not scratching up the top of your table saw. You're set. Okay guys? So that takes care of the front fence. Now let's work on the other fence. Alright, with the sled back into position, I can go ahead and get my fence attached. Now, in most cases, a lot of people like to go right to the back edge of their sled and attach it that way, and they can use the sled itself as a handle when sawing and everything. I actually want to put a handle on the back like my other sled, so I'm going to bring this in about 3 inches from the outside edge, and that'll give me a place to put my handles and my little blocks and stuff. So with my alignment, I can go ahead and just take a square, any type of shop square and everything. Get everything nice and squared up. Now if you have a dial indicator, I'll just tell you this, Garage Woodworks, Brian over there, he's got a method for doing fences on sleds using a dial indicator that's real good. I use the 5-cut method when I test the squareness of my fences. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this squared up right now to get the initial screw in, and then I'll make my adjustments accordingly. We'll do a couple of test cuts and I'll make any adjustments necessary. But with that in place where I want it, I can pull my sled back a little bit so I can get a clamp on one side. Alright, with it clamped down on one side, I can go ahead and get a screw in here, and that'll still allow me to pivot this other side to square everything up. Okay, with one side screwed down now, I can go ahead and make my adjustments by sliding this back and forth, make sure I'm squared up, and then I can get my other screws in. For now, I'm going to put one screw in, make a test cut, get everything squared up nice and tight, and then when everything's done, I'll go ahead and add the additional screws. Okay, as I said, I like doing the 5-cut method, so I'm going to go ahead and test this alignment and see how we do. Alright, this was my, well, maybe I should have stayed zoomed in. Alright, this is my first cut. I put a little mark on this indicator here. But guys, I don't know about you, but I think I'm pretty well set. It doesn't get no more better than that. I mean, that is dead square. So I'm happy with that fence position, very happy with it actually. I'm going to go ahead and screw the rest of it down. Perfectly square all the way around. Now that's nice. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get it screwed down, and we have ourselves a sled. Alright, well I tell you, one test cut and no adjustments needed. It was a dead-on square. I'm happy with that. Now I'm getting ready to cut the 4 blocks that go onto the back here, where my handle's going to go, as well as my blade guard. So now with these 2 holes drilled, I can do the same thing to the other 2 blocks on the other side, and my 3/4 inch handle can go through this one and dead end into this one. Okay, with the brackets glued in, I can go ahead and slide the handle in, mark it so I know where I'm going to be, and then I can cut it down to size and go ahead and glue it into place. Alright, with one handle glued in, basically rinse and repeat for the other side, and got yourself a nice set of handles. And then when everything's said and done, we'll put the little blade guard on. And that'll protect us and keep us, you know, aware that this is where our blade guard is going to be. But yeah, nice sturdy handles, good control. Alright guys, well that finishes off the back blade guard and everything to protect all that. I've got 2 good sturdy handles here. And that wraps up this project. So let's take an all-around look and call it a day. Hey guys, as always, I want to thank you for sticking with me through this build, and hopefully you can take something from this video for the next time you make a cross cut sled for your table saw. As I said in the beginning of the video, there's a lot of videos out there, and this is just my take. I'm very pleased with the outcome. This is kind of a medium to small size sled. Remember, you can go bigger depending on what size panels and what operations you want to do with it. This is the perfect size for me. It's a 0 clearance 90 cutting sled, which is the one sled that I didn't have in my arsenal. I've got a nice long fence here that I can attach a stop block to. This thing cuts square, and I'm very pleased with the outcome of that. Absolutely no play whatsoever. The whole saw will move before this thing does, and that's a couple of things that you want to shoot for. So again, hopefully you can take something and use it in your shop. Thanks again guys. Until next week, see you soon.